This video is made possible by Spencer Shipley at Packey Webb Ford in Downers Grove, Illinois. Spencer is dedicated to finding the right car for you in the quickest time possible. Give him a call or contact him with the information up on the screen or found in the description below. Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2008 Ford Explorer Sport Trac. Up front is a 4.0 liter V6 and down below is a 5-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here Sport Trac for a couple of reasons, but mainly the fact that these are weird. They're Ford Explorers, and yet they're also a pickup truck. At the time, Ford was also producing the Ford F-150, a pickup truck, and the Ford Ranger, a pickup truck. And so this was sort of a weird mid-segment vehicle that I'm not sure anyone was asking for. But let's see how it stacks up. But before we get on with the rest of the video, if you guys would like to check out my website, zackpradel.com, I have blog posts, some behind-the-scenes stuff of what I'm filming that week, what I'm excited for, as well as some merchandise on there and how to submit your vehicle. Or you could do so at pradelreviews@gmail.com. Shoot me an email with your location and the car, and I will try to come out and film your vehicle. But let's get back to that 4.0 liter Cologne V6. Well, it makes 215-ish horsepower. However, that wasn't the largest engine offered here in the Sport Trac. You could also get the 4.6 modular V8 from the Crown Vic, Mustang, Explorer, etc. Now, it is part of the Cologne engine family from Ford, which is a very interesting engine family. This engine was actually built in Germany. And while it shares vehicles with the Ranger, the Mazda B4000, which is a Ranger, and the Mustang, it's also found in the Land Rover LR3, with modified engine mounts and a couple things changed here and there, but it's still the same 4-liter V6. Now, I've driven this engine before, actually an older version of this engine in a Ford Ranger that I reviewed last year, and honestly, I don't have any personal issues here with the 4-liter V6. I think it's a pretty hefty V6, it definitely offers that grunt, and honestly, not that much less horsepower than the modular V8. However, there is an OEM issue with these V6s, and that is that the timing chain, guides and tensioners tend to break, and they've been reported as happening as low as 25,000 miles. So something to look out for if you're looking for one of these on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and it says needs a timing chain. Just know that that's pretty standard on these kinds of vehicles. Let's see what the 4-liter can do. You know, it's fine. It's not a very powerful engine. It's not going to rock you into your seat, but at the end of the day, it's okay. It's all right. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed automatic transmission. It's the 5R55W transmission, and it's fine. It's doing the job. It's a late 2000s transmission. It's whatever. However, this being a 2008, the next year in 2009, there was actually a 6-speed automatic that came in these to finish out its life for 2009 and 2010. The Sport Trac was discontinued after 2010. Last but not least, this here particular Sport Trac is an XLT. We'll get into that in a second, but that means that this is the lower tier of the Sport Trac, and so it is rear-wheel drive. However, you could find these in 4-wheel drive if that's something that you wanted. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the interior, and before we get to the gauge cluster, let's talk about what I just mentioned with the trim levels. So there was 2 trim levels of the Sport Trac, the XLT, which is this truck, and there was the Limited, which had like a leather steering wheel, nicer stereo, things like that, but only 2 trim levels. Now the XLT was like a mid-trim level of the Ford Explorer. So you could get a Ford Explorer that was way more basic than this, but you couldn't get a Sport Trac that was more basic than this. Kind of interesting there. But moving on to the interior, in front of me, I have 2 physical gauges. On the left, I have my coolant temperature as well as tachometer, and on the right, I have my speedometer and fuel. Very, very basic here, and I'll get it out of the way right off the bat. I had a friend who had a Ford Freestyle. I believe it was like an 08 or 09, and so all of the stuff in here is a mirror image of the rest of Ford's lineup. I do get a little information screen in the center. It's only 2 rows of text, so not that helpful. On the steering wheel, on the left, I have my cruise control options, and on the right, I have voice, media, seek, volume, and phone okay. Moving off to the left, I do have a circular vent as well as my headlight switches, gauge dimmer switches, and then I have the mirror switches, power mirror switches, sort of mounted awkwardly up on the dash. Kind of interesting there. Moving on to the door, I have my power windows, child lock mirrors, and my power locks. However, at the very top, you get this little chrome piece. That is actually the handle to get in and out of the Sport Trac. Very, very interesting placement there. Up above the center console, before we get to the radio and such, there are two switches, one for the moonroof, but also another switch for the rear glass. So the rear window will actually roll down like a Toyota 4Runner or like a Honda Del Sol, which is really, really cool. I could see on like a nice summer day, you want a little breeze in here, you can actually roll down that very rear window, which is very, very cool and something that the Ford Explorer non-Sport Trac can't do. Moving into the center, I have a very typical Ford radio, AM, FM, CD, that's pretty much it. Two climate control vents, a myriad of dead switches besides the traction control. I mean, literally, they're not even auxiliary switches, they're just dead switches, which really makes you feel like you're in an XLT and not the Limited. And then I have the climate controls. The climate controls are very basic, very simple. A toddler could learn how to use them relatively quickly. Moving on to the center console on the left, I have a very tall shifter. This is sort of an awkwardly tall shifter, however, very, very typical Ford of this era. And I do have an overdrive switch on the left. I could toggle on and off. Then we do have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Ford Explorer Sport Trac XLT, and it fails. Unfortunately, it does not fit the big friggin' bottle. Finishing out the center console, we do have a little Sync by Microsoft badge. This was very typical of this era as well. And I have a 12-volt outlet. The center console does have a USB and aux, which is very nice, as well as another 12-volt outlet and plenty of storage space. Moving on to the seats are cloth because this is the XLT. The Limited would actually get leather seats. And I think that they're relatively comfortable. They're doing the job fine. Don't really notice it one way or the other. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2008 Ford Explorer Sport Trac, and again, like I talked about up front, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more towards the end of the video, I feel like I'm just sitting in a Ford Explorer. Now, out of my peripheral vision, I see this flat window right at my, eye line. So that's obviously meaning that I'm in a truck, but looking straight forward, sitting here, feeling the materials, it's all Ford Explorer. It really doesn't even start to be truck until behind me, which is kind of nice. Again, we'll talk about later. In terms of amenities, don't really get much. I do get this nice bubble, so my head is actually fitting properly. My knees aren't hitting the front seat or anything like that. I have the same weird door handles as I get up front, and I don't get a center console, again, because this is the XLT. I don't get anything special like that. What is special is that rear trunk or bed or cargo space. So let's go take a look at that. Before we talk about the cargo space, I just want you guys to know that one of these businesses around here is making garlic bread or pizza, and it just smells wonderful. So just get that idea into your head. But now we're around the back of the Sport Trac, and this is where it becomes a truck. And now, as I've learned, the tailgate does not unlock with the button, which is kind of unfortunate, but you can just slide it in here, and there we go. Now there is like a bed liner and things like that. I do get this nice tonneau cover, tonneau, that also locks separately, and then you can lift it up like that. And it actually does have the kidnapping pull tab, so in case you kidnap someone back here, they can get out. Something I just noticed though is a outlet, which is very, very nice. That is really, really great. And I do actually get some nice storage options back here. So around here, look at that. I get this nice little storage area. That's the same on both sides. And then I actually get one up at the front as well. So very, very versatile, very useful bed. It's not super large, but for a car that you would have or vehicle that you would have in a suburban neighborhood, you're not, transporting cattle across state lines. I think this would do just fine and really fill the void that 99% of truck buyers really need. This is all the bed space you really, truly need. Now we got to talk about the looks. Now this body style only lasted from 2007 till 2010. But the Sport Trac overall lasted from 2001 to 2010, skipping the 2006 model year for this here refresh. This is technically the second gen Sport Trac if you want to get super technical. I like the look of it. I think it's very interesting. We already talked about the bed and space and things like that. But every time I see one of these, it's quite puzzling, if I'm honest. I'm not really sure the reasoning behind it. Here's what I do like, and we can talk about how that probably factors into the idea behind this truck. I like how this truck drives. This does not drive like an F-150 that has solid steel suspension and is going to rough up your back over some rough roads. This drives like a nice, quiet SUV. For all intents and purposes, I don't even realize that there is a bed behind me, which is good. For someone that wants a truck but doesn't want a truck, this is a pretty good middle ground, I do say. Part of that is due to the fact that it has four-wheel independent suspension, unlike most trucks where they have a solid rear axle. Now, of course, that means you can't really tow as much, but if you're buying a Sport Trac to tow, you have bigger issues. And so with that being said, as we're sort of starting to work through my feelings on this truck, it actually is starting to make a little bit of sense. I guess I could see myself if I lived in a suburban neighborhood where a giant truck isn't going to be the most maneuverable. It's nice to have the smaller Explorer chassis. It drives like your mom and dad's SUV. It drives pretty normally, and yet you still have the versatility of having that bed in the back that you could spray out if you want to bring a dirt bike, a lawnmower, get some mulch for your parents. The only real issue I see with this here Sport Trac is the same issue I see with Fords across their lineup from this era, and that was that the build quality wasn't super amazing. What I mean by that is that there's a lot of plastic in here. Then again, this is an XLT. This isn't a Bentley, this isn't a Rolls Royce, so I guess I can't be too harsh on it. One last thing, one final thought about this XLT is the fact that I watched Django Unchained twice yesterday, and so I want to give a huge thank you to Spencer Shipley from Packey, Webb, Ford. He is absolutely awesome. He got this car for me to review. If you are looking for a new vehicle, you should definitely contact Spencer Shipley. He will find the right car for you. Come on into Packey, Webb, Ford. They have great inventory. They've been getting in Mavericks and Broncos and Mach-E's, and it's been super, super exciting. So helping them is helping me, and it is greatly appreciated. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any stories, personal stories, if you've owned a Sport Trac, want to own a Sport Trac, had a family member, friend, foe that had a Sport Trac, please leave it in the comment section down below. I love to hear those stories, and I'm sure with this odd vehicle, someone has to have a good one. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.